take out the note sheet provided for you to take notes on. In this video, you will receive a recap of the important topics discussed during the Unicellular, Multicellular Geologic Time Project. If you feel your original notes were good enough, go to another video that you need assistance with. Unicellular organisms are living things made of one cell. The paramecium on the left is unicellular. Multicellular organisms are living things made of many cells. The baby on the right is multicellular. The first sign of life on Earth was 3.8 billion years ago. These microorganisms were unicellular. The first life on Earth is believed to be either bacteria or archaea. Archaea is the domain of single-celled microorganisms. If the first organisms were bacteria, they are believed to have been thermotagales, which live in high temperatures. The microorganisms were anaerobic, which means they did not need oxygen to survive. The organisms were prokaryotic, which means they were unicellular and had no nucleus. The diagram shows a prokaryotic cell. The first organisms on Earth needed to be anaerobic because when they lived, there was little oxygen in the atmosphere. Therefore, they used hydrogen, sulfur, and other chemicals to survive. Many of these organisms were considered to be extremophiles because they could live in extreme environments that were very high in saline, very acidic, or very hot. Because there was no ozone, many of these single-celled organisms lived in water. So how did life actually begin on Earth? At the time of early life, the atmosphere contained a lot of nitrogen, but also consisted of carbon, oxygen, argon, hydrogen, and small amounts of other elements. Scientists believe that life may have begun in deep-sea hydrothermal vents, which have very high temperatures. Some archaea still live in these vents today. In the 1950s, Stanley Miller and Harold Urey wanted to complete experiments to prove how life started. They mixed together the gases that existed in the atmosphere of primitive Earth in a jar. They then zapped the gases with an electric shock that simulated lightning. The result of the experiment was organic material in the bottom of the jar. The organic compounds were amino acids that are needed for life. The oldest known possible multicellular eukarya is Gripania spiralis. This organism was about 2 millimeters wide and over 10 centimeters long. They appeared around the first time of an atmosphere with oxygen. They developed approximately 2.1 billion years ago. The top image is a fossil of Gripania spiralis. The earliest known multicellular animal is Ediacaran fauna. Some of these animals resemble modern-day jellyfish and segmented worms. The bottom image is a fossil of an Ediacaran fauna. Over time, unicellular organisms became multicellular organisms. Some bacteria may have started to live in other cells. Also, some single-cell organisms may have started to form colonies and begin to work together and share the work that they needed to get done. In the beginning of the Cambrian period, about 540 million years ago, multicellular organisms started taking over the Earth. This is in great part due to photosynthesizing cyanobacteria that appeared about 3.5 billion years ago. Because cyanobacteria performed photosynthesis, they introduced large amounts of oxygen into the atmosphere. This allowed aerobic organisms that needed oxygen to survive to evolve.